Well, it is your top story on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome to Daytime Update. I'm Michelle Craig. Rescue efforts continuing in George at the site of a building collapse that so far claimed the lives of 7 people. 39 others are still unaccounted for. But as that rescue mission continues and as hands are being used to try to move pieces of rubble to try and get to those who are still stuck underground, let's now bring in Dr. Simpiwe Sobuwa. He is the head of the Department for Emergency Medical Science at Cape Peninsula University of Technology. Dr. Sobuwa, it's great to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed for coming on. And really, what we want to get from our discussion from you is a sense of what those people who are stuck underground, and of course the hope and prayer is that all of them will come out alive and all of them will survive. But what they will be going through now almost 48 hours since that building collapsed.
Yeah, for certain, I'm sure they will be quite anxious while they're there. And they will most likely not have eaten or drank anything whilst they. So probably they most likely dehydrated, most of them. But I mean, the body is a wonderful thing. So I mean, people can survive for several without eating. So the likelihood of survival post even the 3 days, I mean, is still there.
So the international standard, as we understand from the briefings that have been given to us from George, is 72 hours. Why do you think that is, that specific time frame?
So the earlier the better. I mean, in a structural collapse in particular, because when the structures collapse, the risk of injury is extremely high. So it's one thing when you can survive for several days without injuries, but when you are injured, your time to hospital and definitive care becomes that much greater. So hence the 72-hour window for rescue efforts.
Officially, Dr. Sobuwa, how long can someone go without water and then without food?
Sure. So, I mean, it varies. Some people, I mean, we've had, 10, 12 days without, food and water. So here, what will generally happen, if there's no signs of life, that is when the rescue efforts, will be called off. And the signs of life will be through a device which we call the life locator. So it can detect movement up to 12 meters below the rubble. It can detect breathing below the rubble up to 10 meters. And you've also got thermal images that you can use. You've also got listening devices that we can also use. So if none of that, if all those bring back negative results, then, at that point, rescuers will call the rescue off.
Wow. It's such a difficult thing because obviously, as we discuss the story, we put ourselves in the shoes of the loved ones who are praying for the safe return of those people who are still stuck underground. But just in terms of the location devices that you've mentioned, devices that can detect breathing or sounds up to 12 meters underground, it obviously also just helps focus the rescue effort, right? Because it's quite a big site. And I imagine, you don't want to be wasting time in an area where no one is. So that way of detecting signs of life helps rescuers and emergency personnel hone in on a particular area.
Absolutely. So, I mean, you take the life locator, so it's a device, and you kind of move it around the site so that you can be able to pinpoint exactly where the persons are trapped in the rubble. So within the rubble, you have cavities or voids we call them, so where people can survive. So it's almost like they not sit, they not beneath, a hard surface, so to speak. So they're able to survive there. So it's just a matter of carefully getting to them becomes the challenge.
Yeah. I'm just showing our viewers live visuals of the scenes coming out of George there. You can see that there is a crane at the ready. Just a few moments ago, one of the emergency personnel called over what will likely be a sniffer dog. Dr. Sobuwa, the sniffer dogs, how much of a, because obviously it's a multidisciplinary rescue, right? There are various methods of rescue that are being employed here. How much of assistance, generally speaking, would a sniffer dog be at a site like this?
So it plays a crucial role. But the challenge with the dogs is that, well, their safety becomes paramount. So you wouldn't want to, depending on how the rubble is laid out. So you need to just take that into consideration, because in as much as our safety comes first, but the dog's safety also comes first. One, and two is the dog can't tell you whether what they're smelling there is dead or alive. So you kind of then have to, in conjunction with the dog, see if the life locator can't pick up any breathing or any movement below the surface.
Is it asking too much for the life locator to also detect signs of life like a pulse? Is that a stretch too far?
Look, that's a good question. So if you are breathing, then you must have a pulse. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's why. So movement. So there's either movement, so if someone is unconscious and they're not moving, so at least it will be able to detect whether you breathe. Yeah.
Just looking at the visuals coming to us from George, again, Dr. Sobuwa, that crane there in the background, it's standing at the ready, but obviously it's just not a case of picking up those concrete slabs and moving them, because there's no way of knowing when you move one thing how that impacts the rest of the site, right?
That's 100% correct. So what I think I mentioned before, that when the persons are trapped underneath, it's almost like a cavity. So whether they're either standing or sitting. So the tricky part now is, how do you move all the rubble so that it doesn't collapse on top of the victims? So that is very tricky. So you have to, almost drill some holes and put a search camera and see if you can pinpoint exactly where the people are, and move the search camera around to see the outline of the building that has collapsed. And you mentioned multidisciplinary, so we also have structural engineers that are there, who will be able to advise how do we then maneuver all this rubble so that it doesn't collapse on the persons that are trapped underneath.
Yeah. You mentioned, Dr. Sobuwa, the person, because we've also heard coverage, and I think there was something mentioned in one of the press briefings about someone who is trapped underground, and the person happens to be in a standing position. We've talked about people who are possibly injured under the rubble. They might be laying down or sitting down or be in various positions. But does being in a standing position for this length of time, how does that complicate a rescue mission? And how does it influence the chances of survival one way or the other?
Yeah, so I mean, it's highly unlikely. I mean, if you can stand, surely one would be able to sit down. So it's highly unlikely that a victim would be standing for an indefinite period of time. I would imagine they'd be able to sit or lie down if they could, so that they can rest and conserve their energy. because I mean, standing as well takes a great deal of energy, and if you're not eating or drinking, I would imagine, one would want to take a breather and sit and so that they can conserve their energy.
What would be going through the minds of rescuers, Dr. Sobuwa, as we complete our conversation this afternoon? Because we're all watching the clock, right? At 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, that's the 72-hour deadline that we've been talking about. It's a massive job and it's a massive mental load, obviously for the people and their families who are praying for their safe return, but also for the medical personnel and emergency services personnel.
Look, one thing I can tell you, for as long as there's signs of life, I mean, the rescue personnel won't give up. So the rescue can continue well beyond the 72 hours. For example, if they find signs of life sometime today or tomorrow, and it means that they have to work beyond the 72 hours, they will definitely do that. So if there's hope, they will definitely proceed. In Turkey, I mean, we worked well beyond the 72 hours. We worked, even the week after the earthquake, we were still, looking for people.